Hello everyone, Darkside Phil here, and welcome to a very special event. Ladies and gentlemen, today I celebrate 15 years as a YouTuber. Yes, today is a very special day. It was way back when, in 2008, when I decided that I was going to start posting up gameplay on this very website. And since then, really, it's been almost a daily ritual for me to share something of my life with you every single day, whether it's gameplay of a hot new release, a retro classic, something that I'm just doing in my house, like tasting food, going on a trip, vlogging. Now I have a daily podcast discussing game news and topics and things like that. It's been a wild ride. It really has been. And what I'd like to do today is to reminisce a bit. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to have a segment here where I'm going to talk to you about my history of how I became a YouTuber, why I became a YouTuber, how that changed over time because my original hobby ended up turning into my full-time job completely inadvertently. And then how things changed over the years, how attitudes on places like YouTube changed, how content changed, and essentially how I had to adapt and change over the time so that I could stay relevant to an audience. And even though today in 2023, I am nowhere near as relevant, pertinent, or popular as I was, say, 15 years ago, at the very same time, I still maintain a positive atmosphere, a successful business. I have a great audience of people who come by every day and enjoy my content at face value, and I really appreciate that. So, today is a day of celebration, fun, and reminiscing. But before we get to that, Emil dropped a 10-member bomb on the channel. Thank you so much, Emil. That is so nice of you. Congratulations to Kagome, Rugel Bernstein, Daddy the DK, Johnny B. Smithy, Daxma, Cheetah Man, Stokes, Chud Baxter, Forever Alone, and Frank White, who were each gifted a membership here. And that means that we are now up to 142 members, which I believe may actually be the record number of members we've ever had on this channel. Being that I'm going to be on DSPReacts, my reacting channel, all day long doing this event, we very well may see some more records hit. Now, if we get contributions, I am going to be stopping to shout them out. I'm going to be having conversation with people in the chat during this. I'm drinking a drink here today that is a combination of rum, orange liqueur, and juice with some cool food coloring and tea leaves in it that we're calling the Space Jam drink. All right? Woo! And it is incredibly strong. I put way too much liquor in it. All right. Ladies and gents, my history on YouTube started in a very different way than probably most people's. All right? Back in the day, in the 2000s, I was a pro Street Fighter player. Now, what that meant was that I traveled the country. I spent a lot of money and time competing in tournaments. It did not mean that I made a living playing Street Fighter because back then no one could. Okay? There was not any sponsorship. There was no teams of esports being, sending people all over the country. There were no giant prize pools for fighting game tournaments. It was all very grassroots before the release of Street Fighter 4 in 2009. So when I did it, it was just for the love of the game. Okay? And I did this for many, many years. And I was aware of YouTube. I knew that it existed. I knew that people were posting content up there, but it never really dawned on me that it was anything that I would be interested in. Now, as I was a Street Fighter player, I used to travel with a group of friends, and it was actually in a hotel room at a Street Fighter tournament where we were just hanging out and having fun, and one of my friends said, "Did you ever see this guy called the Angry Video Game Nerd?" Now, I was like, "No, I don't know who that is." And they showed me a video of this guy who looked like very much dressed up like a nerd, right? He had a button-down white kind of shirt, thick glasses, right? Even talked kind of a little bit high-pitched or whatever. And here he is, ranting at a video game, making funny lines, talking over the top, swearing like a sailor. Hilarious. No production values, no budget to it, just him and a camera making fun of a video game. And I thought it was absolutely hilarious. This was probably like 2005, 2006, okay? So, this is one of the earliest Angry Video Game nerd videos ever. In fact, he might have been the Angry Nintendo nerd back then, okay? By the way, shout outs to a lot of people who are showing up. Dark Maggot says he's just coming by to say hi. He has to take off. Thank you for stopping by today, Dark Maggot. We're going to have a lot of people coming in and out just here to say hello for the anniversary. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Fan of Lovecraft, for being here and helping moderate today. And he says, here's to 15 years. I've been proud to have been here from the beginning. Thank you so much for that. And the thumbnail today, yes, made by a viewer. The many ways that I looked over these years. That first picture is very much how I looked in the 2000s when all this started, when I was a Street Fighter player, okay? So, after having seen this angry video game nerd on YouTube and laughing hysterically at it, I became a big fan. I started watching all of his content, and I thought that he was hilarious. And in 2007, all right, this was a critical year for me in many different ways, all right? Here's the deal, is that basically I was diagnosed with a very bad back injury. I had a severely herniated disc in my lower back. By the way, as you can see back then, I was very chubby. I was overweight. I probably weighed 240 pounds. My knees hurt all the time. My back was all messed up. I had shooting pain in my legs, and sometimes it was numb, and I couldn't even feel them. It was very bad. I went to the doctor, and after the MRI, the doctor told me, you were literally this close from having a fully ruptured disc, in which case you probably would have lost control of your bodily functions. And it probably would have affected you for the rest of your life. So I was incredibly lucky to catch it when I did, but it was horrible. And at that point in my life, I had been traveling to play Street Fighter for a straight 7-8 years. I was the one who would drive all my friends to Street Fighter tournaments, and they would carpool with me. I was the one who would motivate them. I would set up and I would reserve the hotel rooms. I would register us for the tournaments. I was the guy who kind of was the one who got Connecticut, where I used to live, on the map for Street Fighter and traveling around for it. So at this point in my life, I had just gotten back from EVO 2007. And quite frankly, it was a time in my life that I decided that things needed to change, you know. I had been putting all this time and effort into Street Fighter, and because of that, I had missed out on a lot of things in my life, you know. I hadn't really touched video games outside of Street Fighter in a very long time. I was not taking care of myself, you know, various different things going on. By the way, and I'll be honest with you guys, at this point in my life, I was not really liking life. I was fat, I was single, I was depressed. My job, I felt, was mistreating me and not treating me very well. I was getting paid at my job the role of a customer support agent, but I was doing the work of someone who was doing continuous improvement work who should be getting paid double what I was getting paid, okay? So basically, a lot of things in my life weren't very good at this time in my life. And just having this back injury and being diagnosed with it made me very, very depressed. The first videos I ever actually uploaded to YouTube, which you may not be aware, are from my original Dark Side Phil channel, not DSP Gaming, where I post all my content today, but on the original Dark Side Phil channel. This is where I got my start, and that channel existed back in 2007, which a lot of people don't know. They think, oh, well, you got your start in 2008. You started posting up gameplay videos of video games. That is true, but actually my first videos were all from 2007, and they were gameplay videos of Street Fighter, me traveling to the Midwest Championships in Chicago, Illinois, and filming an arcade-style tournament that took place then. Those were actually the very first videos ever I put on YouTube. So there you can see my origins, that at that point I very much was still a big part of my life, right? But after getting back from EVO 2007 and basically not having done very well and going through this grind for 7-8 years of my life and having a back injury now and being overweight and being depressed, I was like, I got to make a change. And so I decided at that point that I was going to get into gaming again at a more casual way. Rather than being a pro Street Fighter player, I was going to branch out and start playing games of all types. So I started playing games such as Mass Effect 1 and Grand Theft Auto 4, BioShock 1, Blue Dragon, Tales of Vesperia, okay? Amongst others. Lost Odyssey, I remember, from that time period. The Last Remnant I played. A lot of RPGs, okay? Among other games. But basically, I got into games again for the very first time in a very long time, okay? And I kind of fell in love with console games for the first time since the 90s. You know, growing up in the 90s, I was a huge fan of the SNES and Super Mario World and Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past and stuff like that. And even PS1 era, you know, Resident Evil 1 and stuff like that. But then as I got into competitive Street Fighter, I just became so hyper-focused and tunnel vision on Street Fighter that I pretty much neglected all the other games that were out there in the gaming landscape, and I didn't really pay attention to them. And so this was an opportunity for me now to get back into hardcore gaming again in a way that I hadn't in a very long time. Let's have some of this crazy drink that's way too strong. Wow. God damn, that's strong. Shout out to Seager, who did a $5 super chat. Says, happy 15th. I have beaten cancer. Wow. Congratulations, Seagrams. They said, I had it for 4 years. I finally have no signs. It was a very difficult journey for me. Congratulations. Beating cancer is probably one of the most difficult things you could do in life, and it is a huge accomplishment. What you went through all that treatment, I'm sure was absolutely terrible. Congratulations. I am incredibly happy for you. I'm happy that I can get great news like that during my 15th anniversary celebration. Thanks for being a part of it. Thank you for the support, and I'm very happy for you. I really am. So thank you so much. Also, a couple tips have come in I want to shout out, and then we'll continue with the story here. We got a $20 tip from anonymous tipper. Says, congratulations on your 15-year anniversary. I always say this, but I still remember your original Dead Space videos. That was, original Dead Space videos were 2008. We'll talk about those, actually, as we go through my history here. Thank you very much. Let's get this tip on the leaderboard here. I found this guy online that as time passed and more I watched his videos, I start to feel as I'm a friend watching him play video games every day. Thank you for all of your years of entertainment, and here's to even more. Cheers. Thank you for your kind words and the support. And by the way, I received a $40 tip from 1 Minute Man today. Thank you so much to 1 Minute Man for a very generous contribution on today's stream. Basically doubling up today for the celebration. Thank you so much, 1 Minute Man. That is awesome of you. Thank you, thank you. All right. So, continuing on with the story. Basically, in 2007 / into 2008, I re-immersed myself into the gaming landscape, playing all of these video games behind the scenes, okay? Meaning, I didn't make YouTube videos at this point. The only videos I'd put out on the Dark Side Phil channel were from me going to Street Fighter tournaments. That was it, okay? And then in 2008, I started playing a lot more games, and again, being a humongous fan of the Angry Video Game Nerd, and seeing how he, in a 2 to 3 year period, he improved, he branched out, and I was like, you know, I feel like if he can do that, with his sense of humor, with his great observational skills, and obviously he was pretty good at acting, I could probably do that too. But the difference is I don't want to do what he does. I actually want to genuinely play new games and actually just do commentary on them. Now, on YouTube at this point in time, all right, videos like that were not prominent. They existed. They were called Let's Plays, okay? But they were not prominent. They were not overly well known. They certainly didn't push into the mainstream. Mostly the videos you found of gameplay on YouTube were basically people doing walkthroughs, okay? Someone who knew the game, who knew really well how to play it, and they would either do like gameplay with superimposed text over it, or even in the description of the video, it would kind of explain how to do what they were doing, all right? Or it would be full-on walkthrough, hand-by-hand, how to play the game. Really, from what I saw on YouTube when I looked for gameplay videos, I could never really find someone who was playing it and just doing the commentary over it of them doing a first-time playthrough. For example, one of the games I was playing was Lost Odyssey. And as I was playing Lost Odyssey, I got stuck. I wanted to bite this super boss, like optional super boss that was at the end of the game. And I'm searching on YouTube for a video of it, and all I can find are people just playing it and not commentating over it. So it's very hard to follow. Like, what's their strategy during this crazy long boss? The boss fight's like 30 minutes long. What's your strategy? Are there stages to the boss? What's going on? And with no one talking over it, I can't figure out what's going on. So the video is almost pointless, okay? And at that point, it really was a big lack of that kind of content on YouTube. And so I said, if I just were to do some silly commentary, observational stuff over gameplay, I wonder if, if anyone would care, if it would catch on. And I'm just going to try it, all right? And by the way, I wasn't professional. I didn't have direct capture. I didn't have a great quality camera. I didn't have a microphone. I literally had a digital camera, a Sony digital camera that I had bought back when I worked at Circuit City in the early 2000s. So it's 2008, and I'm using a 5 to 6 year old camera. And it's only standard definition. It's not even widescreen. So I got this camera pointed crooked at my TV. I live with my parents, okay? I'm in a cramped ass side bedroom that's as small as a closet in other homes. It's hot as hell. I'm sweating profusely in this room during the summertime because we don't have central air in the house and the air conditioning's not good. So I'm trying to record a video with a camera on a tripod, crooked, to fit a widescreen into a 4:3 aspect ratio. I'm yelling at the camera so that it'll hopefully pick up my voice because all we have is the built-in microphone on the camera to pick up the volume. It's really the biggest, most bootleg ghetto style of gameplay video that you could really put out on the internet. And so I started playing various games. One of the first ones that I ever played was called Star Wars The Force Unleashed. And there was this one particular part. I was like, if I'm playing a game and I find a part that really pisses me off, I want to commentate over it to explain why that part of the game is such an annoying part. And I found it. It was Star Wars The Force Unleashed. Star Destroyer gameplay sucks. That's what I called the video. There's one part during Star Wars The Force Unleashed where you are Star Killer, the main character who has incredible force powers. And there's a Star Destroyer out in the sky coming into the atmosphere of a planet. And what you're supposed to do is use your force powers to grab it and actually pull it out of the sky and force it to crash land onto the planet. But as you're doing this, you realize that everything in the game is wrong. It's telling you, press right. If you press right, you fail. They actually accidentally put the opposite control on the screen. So it says press right. You're supposed to press left. So I'm trying to do this. I'm doing it for like 25 minutes and I can't pass it. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? And then come to find out, it was the game developers who goofed it up. They actually put the wrong thing on the screen. So after doing this, I said, you know what? I'm going to film this. So I put my camera up, crooked, recorded it. It was my first ever piece of gameplay that I put on YouTube that was not Street Fighter. Okay? And it didn't get a lot of views. All right, maybe overnight got a couple hundred views, but I was like, wow. And people were commentating on it. They were actually leaving comments on the video, and they're like, "This is interesting, to see this game. This is a brand new game, and to see someone, criticizing it and yelling out at this part. It's kind of interesting. And the guy's funny. His voice is very. But the point, wow, this guy must be a real nerd. Because by the way, back then, anyone who commentated on gameplay was compared to the angry video game nerd. I kid you. Now, you guys know me. I don't look like the nerd. I don't sound like the nerd. I don't do commentary like the nerd. No one's going to say, Darkside Phil is an angry video game nerd ripoff. Who the hell is going to say that? Back then, that's what people said. People would commentate on my videos and be like, what are you, ripping off the nerd? I'm like, why? Because I'm talking over a game and criticizing it? I'm the angry video game nerd? What are you talking about? It was literally everyone was saying that back in the day, that anyone who made commentary on a game was the nerd. It tastes better when you start to get buzzed. Let's put it that way. So anyway, really? Gadaro says to this day they still didn't patch that part. It's still screwed up. Pff, wow. I believe it. Back then they didn't do patches, right? Back then there was no live patches. They didn't update games to fix them or whatever. Whatever you had is what you had, right? So, I remember that was the first game I commentated on. And after having seen that it got a few hundred views and people were kind of interested, and the comments were kind of interesting, I said, all right, I'll do a few more. So I started playing games like Mercenaries 2, and I started playing games like Dead Space 1. Now, keep in mind, my gameplay was not like I do today. It wasn't a full playthrough, part by part, outlining how the game played and doing a playthrough from start to finish. It was just highlights. So I remember with Dead Space, it was like Dead Space scary as hell. And it was the scene where the dead corpse in the medical wing gets infected by the necromorph, the one that infects them and turns them into mutants or whatever. So it's infecting the dead body, it's gore squirting everywhere, and the dead body reanimates and mutates into a deadly creature. It's scary. It is. You know, back then, I was not used to playing survival horror games. I had only played like Resident Evil 1 and 2, and that was literally it. I had never played a survival horror game since. So I'm playing Dead Space, and I'm like, I'm legit scared. I'm getting goosebumps on my body as I play this game because I've never really played a horror game before in like over a decade. And to be doing this with a camera, recording key moments, was very interesting. So I did a few highlights of that game. And I did a few highlights when I played Mercenaries 2 to just prove how unprofessional things were back then. I was drunk as hell. Most of the time when I played Mercenaries 2, I was sitting there and I was drinking rum and coke. And when I say rum and coke, I mean this much rum and this much coke. So the drink was not even brown. It was like beige or white because I drank so much rum back then. I've already told you guys about my history that back in the day I used to be pretty bad alcoholic. As I was depressed, I would drink a lot, okay? So playing Mercenaries 2, all those videos are usually I'm slurring and I'm barely, you know, but it's funny because I'm highlighting shortcomings of the game. Here's a window where there's literal endless enemies come out of the window. Infinite respawns. They never stop. Well, when does the mission end, right? It's like, what the hell? How do you win this mission if the enemies just keep coming out of the window, flopping out? So back then, that's the kind of videos I made. And over the course of like a 3-month period, because my first Star Wars video was in September, so I played September, October, November, December. Basically 4 months, I did this style of video. And at the end of the year, I actually did some year-end videos, which was like, here's my best games that I played this year and stuff like that. And I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, because I don't remember exactly that first year, everything I did. I think that was also the year I played Fable 2, and I think that was also the year I played Fallout 3, right? And I think when I got to Fable 2 and Fallout 3, I actually started doing full playthroughs, instead of just the highlight videos, where I would do like maybe 10, 15 videos a whole game. Instead, I would actually document the entire game. Now, back then, you could only do 10-minute clips on YouTube. You could not go longer. If you tried, YouTube would reject the video. You also couldn't monetize any gameplay on YouTube because YouTube said, oh, well, it's a gray area because technically you're using copywritten content to make your own, and we don't want to get legally involved in that, so therefore, we're not going to monetize any gameplay. If you submitted it for monetization, they would reject it, okay? So, all I did was gameplay, no ads, 10-minute clips thrown out there on YouTube. And within a 4-month period of me making this style of gameplay, my channel Darkside Phil took off. It exploded in popularity. I went from getting just a couple hundred views on every video to thousands of views on every video. I went from people kind of commenting saying, wow, you're a ripoff of the Angry Video Game Nerd, to, wow, I'm a fan of Darkside Phil. I like your improv style of commentary. I find you funny. When I watch your videos, it's like I'm sitting next to my friend on the couch and they're commentating on the game as we play together live. That's what people like. While everyone else on YouTube was doing videos that were more like professional walkthrough, here's how you beat it, I was just playing a game to have fun. And people liked that. They found that unique and different from what everyone else was actually doing on YouTube at the time. Now, I'm not claiming to be the originator of Let's Plays. What happened was I jumped into this thing while other people were doing it, but I became one of the biggest people to actually innovate it and make it popular. People found the Darkside Phil channel and said, wow, that's amazing, and they liked the content because of that. And you know, other people doing it, you know, I think people had actually said that it was I can't even remember his name anymore, but there was a guy who always hated my guts because I got like really popular for doing this kind of content back then, and he had been doing it before me and actually was prominent for doing it on YouTube, but for whatever reason he hated my guts. And it's like, I like never claimed to be the first Let's Player. In fact, I hated the term Let's Plays. All my videos I called playthroughs. And I started using that term and popularized it among the whole gaming content creation landscape. While everyone else was saying Let's Play, I always called it playthroughs. And people, I'm telling you, this one person, I forgot his name. He hated me for it. Like, he was like, oh my God, you're not the originator. I never said I was. I'm just someone who enjoyed doing it, and I genuinely wasn't trying to copy anyone. Like I said, my inspiration was the angry video game nerd who did things very differently. But it was just funny that people would crap on me for it and be like, oh, you copied this or that. No, I didn't. I was just doing my own thing. I don't know how you could possibly say that I was copying anyone at the time. I wasn't even watching anyone else's videos. I literally hadn't even watched another commentator do the style of commentary I was doing. I was just doing it for myself, okay? Anyway, so basically that first 4 months was wild. I never expected that me just throwing these videos onto YouTube would get any kind of popularity or get any kind of attention whatsoever, but they did. And so the real key time for me as a content creator in early 2009 was the release of Street Fighter 4. Now, Street Fighter 4 technically released in 2008 in Japan, but didn't get its console release until 2009. I had covered Street Fighter 4 because I went to an arcade in Rhode Island, all right? Tokyo Game Action, ran by a guy who was a part of the fighting game community. It was always his dream to open an arcade. He opened this arcade and he imported 4 linked Street Fighter 4 cabinets. And I was one of the first person in the United States of America to play Street Fighter 4 because I attended this event, and I got like a crazy, like 90 win streak with E Honda in Street Fighter 4 on the day it released in that arcade. I was defeated by my friend Coruchado, also known as Nestor in the fighting game community. You know Coruchado from being in my gameplay videos many years later with the Call of Duty co-op. He's the one who beat me on that cabinet because he actually knew a lot about the game that I didn't, because he had been studying online how to play it when I had not. Anyway, so I was actually one of the first people in the entire fighting game community to actually have footage of Street Fighter 4 way early. And then when Street Fighter 4 came out on consoles, I covered it very thoroughly and in depth. In fact, you might not realize this, but actually my videos, not a pro players, were being featured on websites like Event Hubs. Darkside Phil made a tutorial for Blanca in Street Fighter 4. Here's the tutorial. Darkside Phil made an extended combo video for Balrog in Street Fighter 4, and here it is. And they were featuring my videos on their front page because I was a prominent YouTuber at the time. So, when Street Fighter 4 came out, I exploded in popularity. All of a sudden, I started getting ridiculous amount, thousands of views. And again, videos could only be 10 minutes long. So I was putting out one video, all right, that was like a 2 to 3 minute match. And I would pump it out on my Darkside Phil channel, and that video would get 5 to 10,000 views. So in one session of Street Fighter 4, I would put out 30 to 40 matches, and I would get hundreds of thousands of views on Darkside Phil because of that session. It was insane. I mean, it was a wild time. Keep in mind, I made nothing on any of this. This was all for fun. This was just for me messing around on YouTube. There was nothing to be had. No, oh, I'll make a living out of this. No one ever thought about that back then. It was just for fun. People started to resent me in the fighting game community. This actually was probably the time when I had the biggest falling out with the fighting game community, because they were upset with me. You know, these are pro players who've been in the community, top placers and everything, and they go on YouTube to find, and who's the big guy for Street Fighter 6? Darkside Phil. The guy who doesn't play competitive fighting games. He retired in 2007, right? And he's just making mess around videos on his channel, and he's getting thousands upon thousands of views, and people got really pissy. Guys like Gutex and Mike Ross, who I didn't even know who the hell they were, started shitting on me publicly in their videos for no reason. I didn't know who they were. I didn't talk about them, but they hated me because I was so prominent in the fighting game community at this time for literally making mess around videos in Street Fighter 4. You know, the Dan Madness series, the Zangief Madness series, where all I would do was pick a random character and go into ranked matches and mess around and get a decent amount of wins. They absolutely hated that I was getting that kind of attention, okay? At the same time, I ramped up my level of coverage of other games because I was getting popular on YouTube. People said, will you cover this new game? Will you cover that new game? Will you buy this one? Will you buy that one? So at this time period, I wasn't a YouTuber that was making money. So what I ended up doing was balancing my work, not work-life balance, what's the word I'm looking for? So I had to keep working my full-time job, but I realized that there might have been potential with something on YouTube at some point, okay? So, even though I had a full-time office job at a helicopter company, and that was how I paid my bills and I bought all the games, every day when I got home from work, 9 to 5 job, I would put 2 to 3 hours of work into YouTube. So I was working a full-time job and then coming home and doing another 3 hours of filming and work and uploading all those videos to YouTube, making nothing on it. What I ended up doing, in 2009, I opened up a vlogging channel called the King of Hate HD. Now, why the King of Hate? This is a moniker that everyone knows, but wonders what does it mean. Back in the fighting game community, a lot of people used to hate on me. And there was good reason. I was one of the biggest internet shit talkers there was in the FGC. So everyone hated Darkside Phil because online he was an asshole to everyone. But in person, I wasn't an asshole. The whole thing was an online persona to try to stir up attention. Because back then, there was no money, there were no teams, there was no hype. You had to build up your personality online to make people care about you at a tournament. So me being kind of the heel or the villain was a thing that I did in the fighting game community to get hype going for events. And so when I went to an event, everyone would shit on me, oh, you suck or whatever. But what I would do is I would call myself the King of Hate. And there was 2 reasons. Number one, because yes, I was a hateful person back then in the fighting game community, and I would crap on anyone. But at the same time, what that moniker evolved into was that when people told me that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't smart enough, I couldn't succeed in life, I would use all of that negativity and hate thrown towards me, and I would use it to fuel myself, to propel myself to success. And so, in the fighting game community, being known as the King of Hate meant, shit on me all you want, come play me at the tournament, and be a man about it, and let's see if you can actually beat me. Now, I'm not saying that I was a top tournament placer, but I also wasn't a scrub. I wasn't at the bottom of the barrel. I was kind of a mid-tier player for most of my fighting game career until Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, that is. And around 2005, 2006, 2007, I placed at EVO and all of that. But essentially, this King of Hate moniker became a thing that in my early days became synonymous with Darkside Phil. You could shit on him as much as you want. You could say his camera quality sucks. You could say he's not good at Street Fighter. But man, he's doing good on YouTube. Look at him. He's one of the top gaming YouTubers. And I did in the year of 2009 into 2010, with the dedication and the time that I was putting into daily putting out videos on YouTube, I became one of the more prominent gaming YouTubers of the time. I didn't expect that. I never asked for it. It just happened. I bought a better camera, this one being HD and widescreen, so instead of me doing this side camera bullshit, it was actually 720p full screen pointed at the TV. I started buying a ton more games. And, you know, basically I would try to take input from people who were watching my videos and leaving comments, because back then, Twitter wasn't a big thing. There really was no major social media. I wasn't using Facebook. I relied on my video comments. And it was actually people leaving comments on all of my videos that gave me the feedback to know what I should do next. And, you know, listening to people play this game, play that game. If you look at some of my earlier playthroughs, you'd be like, why in the hell did Phil play this random game? Because people would recommend games to me to play that I had never heard of. Again, you know, me being out of the gaming community for so long, I really didn't know where to go or what direction to push into that would be something that people would want to see. Besides Street Fighter 4. Street Fighter 4 was always kind of like the thing that I fell back on at that time because I was, you know, prominent for playing Street Fighter in the capacity that I did. I remember at the end of 2009, for the first time ever, doing it as a hobby for an entire year. Not only had I become one of the top gaming YouTubers, I was being ranked constantly in some of the top categories on YouTube for comedy, for entertainment. Like, they had all these rankings back then. You guys may not realize this because today doesn't exist. But on your channel page on YouTube back in the day, they used to rank your daily performance among other people who considered themselves certain categories. So I was constantly ranked among the top comedians and stuff like that. Even though technically I wasn't a comedian, I was still in the top, which was really awesome. My channel page became a huge thing that people would go to my page every single day just to see what Darkside Phil was up to. It had a social media style to it where I could not only put up my own gameplay videos, but I could highlight montages, music remixes, and things that other people were doing. And just by me highlighting and featuring those videos on my page, they would get thousands of views. Okay, so it was a pretty awesome thing back then. I remember at the end of 2009, I was the first year ever I was able to do my real Game of the Year awards because I had played so many video games during the course of that year that I was actually able to accurately cover everything that had happened during that year in a gameplay capacity. And that felt special because it felt like, man, even though this isn't my job, I'm doing something people really like. So I'm going to put effort into it. I don't make any money doing it. At that time, also, like I was telling you, I opened a channel called The King of Hate HD, which was my vlogging channel. That channel made a little bit of money. And the reason being, it wasn't gameplay videos. It was more me talking to the camera, me doing some vlogs, me doing some game reviews and things like that. Like those kind of things, as long as it didn't have gameplay in it, could actually be monetized. So I would do a little bit of that kind of stuff with a ton of gameplay on on Darkside Phil. And the balance, I make maybe, I mean, not even exaggerating, maybe $100 a month, if that, on the vlogging channel, while I put all that money into buying games and doing things over on the Darkside Phil channel, okay? So now we head into 2010, and this is where things change a lot, all right? But before we do that, we got a couple more shout-outs. Shout-out to Casanova, who re-upped their membership for 6 months. Thank you so much, Casanova, for the re-upping of your membership. Also, I got a $10 tip from an anonymous tipper who says, happy 15th anniversary. Thank you so much to the anonymous $10 tipper. I will do my best to do these shout-outs during this segment. As I said, I will try to interact with you guys, too. If you tag me in the chat and have something to say about anything I'm saying here, please add your input. I'd love to hear it. I also got a $4.20 tip from the Shin Black. Says, congrats on 15 years. Even though I recently started to watch your live streams, you've been very entertaining. Hope you enjoy the rest of your celebration. Thank you so much to the Shin Black. One thing I should say, because it just, came to mind, my commentary back then was very different. You have to understand something. Back then on YouTube, what were the primary viewing audience of anything on YouTube? Teenagers. And especially if you're making gaming content, you're trying to appeal to teenagers. So I would do commentary. It's very different than what I would do today. It was a lot of sexual content, sexual references constantly about women in particular, but also I would talk about guys' dicks and stuff like that. Racial stuff. A lot of stereotypes, a lot of racial references and things like that. I always said basically back then, because I was so edgy, I was an equal opportunity offender. If you're offended by something I say, you must not have watched the other 20 things that I just said, because I'm literally saying offensive things about everyone. Every race, every gender, every sexual orientation, all of it is fair game in my content. So because of that, it's like, how could you possibly be offended when everything I'm saying actually is... By the way, this got way more blue. Holy crap, look how much more blue that got. Anyway. How could you be offended when everything I'm saying is equal all along the board? And, primarily my biggest ethnicity is Italian. I have Polish and other things in me, but Italian is my biggest ethnicity. I make fun of Italians. Did you see my Assassin's Creed 2 playthrough? Holy shit. I made Italians look like complete morons, right? So that's what I mean. Like, if I did it for one ethnicity, I would do it for everyone. Back then, we're talking 2009, 2010, this was very popular. Everyone loved it on YouTube. Everything was risque. Today, if you dared say anything like that, you'd be banned from YouTube. This is how it is. Things change over time. Society changes over time. And in this case, this is one of the direct things that happened, that everything changed over time. And you can't be like that anymore. No one is acceptable to act like that anymore on YouTube. But back then, that's just how it was. Everyone liked it. No one got offended by anything. It was just, people were there for fun. It was funny because the comments on videos were so different. Today, when you do anything on YouTube, everyone is just out to shit on you, right? What did you do wrong? What's bad about what you did? Back then, I'm not kidding. I know many of you might be saying, there's no way that's true. I'm telling you God's honest truth here, okay? You would put out a video on YouTube, and the comments would come out, and they'd be like, thank you so very much for playing this game. I was wondering what it was like, and now watching your gameplay, I have an idea. Thank you so much for your commentary. I love your jokes. It's insightful. It's funny. I love this. Everything was positive. I'm not kidding you. It was a rarity at this time period that you would get negativity tossed at you on YouTube. People were grateful that someone was putting out free content for them to watch and enjoy. I mean, today it's like the complete polar opposite. Anything you put on YouTube, you're absolutely being devoured alive and ripped apart at the seams that you would possibly put a video on YouTube that doesn't have insane production quality, super hilarious or whatever. Back then it was like, thanks so much for just putting a video on YouTube today for me to watch. It was a completely different attitude. And it motivated me to keep making this content. Again, keep in mind, I made no money on it. It was just me messing around as a hobby, okay? So 2010 was the year when things changed a lot. For a couple of reasons. I actually moved out of my parents' house and moved into a condo in Connecticut around 2009. And this allowed me to have a better filming location and do better projects, like game reviews and things could look a lot better. I started branching out with the things that I was doing with my video content. And basically the quality improved a bit. I was still doing a camera at the screen, but the quality definitely took a step up. However, in 2010, I started having major problems. I started getting copyright issues on YouTube. First, supposedly from Rockstar Games, when I tried to play the expansion to GTA 4 called The Lost and Damned. Apparently, Rockstar Games claimed the videos and took them down for copyright. It wasn't like, oh, we want the ad revenue. Oh, no, because there was no ad revenue on games back then. They outright just blocked my videos. They hit me with copyright strikes. In which case, if I got another strike, I actually would have lost my channel. All right? Then on top of that, all right, there was another channel, well, not a channel, but another person supposedly called Steve Jones, who copyright struck my playthrough of a Splinter Cell game. And this made no sense, all right? It wasn't like it's a heavy narrative-based game or whatever. I got copyright takedowns from someone named Steve Jones against a playthrough of Splinter Cell. I reached out to Ubisoft. I was like, what is going on? And after a bunch of investigation, it was confirmed it wasn't Ubisoft doing it. It was someone impersonating an Ubisoft employee. And this was my first case where I actually think I had major copyright issues on YouTube of someone trying to take me down. And I didn't realize why that was happening. Like, it was the beginning of the toxicity on YouTube. That people who don't like you will go to any lengths, all right, to try to take you down. Previous to this, it had never happened. For example, the only real negativity I had thrown at me against on YouTube was the FGC didn't like me for covering Street Fighter 4 and getting so popular. That's definitely true. But the other thing was, there started to be this very small niche group. There was someone who called himself DSP Cult Leader, okay? And essentially this was someone who had used to comment on my videos and had said some really messed up things and got blocked for being able to comment on my videos. Because of that, they got angry. So they started a hater channel trying to say that I was a cult leader on YouTube leading children down the route of debauchery. I'm not kidding you. This was actually something real back in the day. This was my first actual interaction with someone who didn't like me. And it was like confusing and everyone made fun of this guy. This guy's nuts. Darkside Phil's very popular. For you to say stuff like this is a nonsense. And no one paid any attention to the guy. And at this time, this was my only time really in my YouTube presence that I was so big and popular that I realized that I was kind of immune to that kind of criticism. Today, anyone who's popular on YouTube usually is immune to it because they're so big and popular. When they have these idiots who come up and say shit like this about them, no one gives them any kind of attention. And that's what happened back then. People, DSP Cult Leader, fuck that guy, he's an idiot, he's a nut job, right? But today, if you're not a giant YouTuber and you get these drama shit, you know, drama content, drama stuff thrown at you, it could really hurt you. And I mean, that's ended up what happening to me over time, as we'll talk about in a bit. But anyway, so in 2010, okay, I got my first false copyright strike takedown from Ubisoft. And at that point, this was like around mid-2010, I was like, so you're telling me at any time, basically, someone could take down my YouTube channel impersonating someone else. Well, I don't like that. So what I want to do is I want to protect all the work that I've done. You know, at this point, 2008, all of 2009, and about the first half of 2010 is content that I've put on this Darkside Phil channel. Now, like, if I'm going to move forward positively here, I got to basically do something to protect myself. So I ended up making new channels to try to diversify myself and protect myself from any kind of problems. So I made DSP Gaming, and this was going to be the channel where I was going to put all my gameplay. I made DSP Street Fighter, and this was going to be the channel where I was going to upload all my fighting game content. And I also made a third channel, the King of Hate Vlogs, not the King of Hate HD, that was the original vlogging channel, but the King of Hate Vlogs, this was going to be the new vlogging channel where I was going to put out that style of content. So I had 3 channels now in 2010, and again, I wasn't making money on any of them except the vlogging, and it was very little. Like I said, like $100 a month, right? So it was a unique time with all this stuff going on. You know, I went from this being a silly little hobby, unintentional, to being something that now was actually like the main hobby and focus of my life. I still had my 9-to-5 job, but that 9-to-5 job was very quickly falling apart. And what I mean by that is they were basically overworking me and not paying me for the work I was doing. And then the writing was on the wall because this company was a helicopter company. Started losing a lot of business. At this time, you know, 2008 through 2010 time, there was a big recession in the United States. No one had money. The banks, the whole financial crisis happened. And because of this, these companies couldn't finance helicopters anymore. They didn't have the money for it. So the helicopter company I worked at lost a lot of business, and they downscaled. All right? And when they downscaled, they basically said, well, we got to do layoffs. We got to do this and that to make ends meet. And I was a victim of this. So, you know, all this time I was working at this helicopter company 4 or 5 years, and I'm thinking that's going to always be my job, and the YouTube thing will be my hobby. Well, that changed in 2010. All this happening at once. Another thing that happened in 2010, I was trying to play other various video games that I was afraid were going to get hit with copyright strikes for, you know, after the Ubisoft debacle of the person impersonating Ubisoft, and their name was really Steve Jones. I was like, I got to do something different when I play certain games. And at this point, you know, I was nervous about playing certain video games. So I ended up making various different channels. I made a Red Dead DSP channel where I played Red Dead Redemption just in case Rockstar Games hit me with copyright strikes like they had done with the Lost and Damned expansion for GTA 4. It would only affect that channel and not my main YouTube channels. I played Final Fantasy 13, my first actual major RPG playthrough ever on YouTube, and I made a whole different channel for that, so just in case Square Enix got any ideas about hitting me with false copyright strikes. So I ended up having DSP Gaming, where the original Dark Side Phil channel still existed. Then there was DSP Gaming, the King of Hate Vlogs, the King of Hate HD, DSP Street Fighter, Red Dead DSP, and like DSP Final Fantasy 13. I had like 10 channels. It was ridiculous. And by the way, every channel was doing well. It wasn't like, oh, because Phil split himself up so much, no one watched. It was, everything was doing crazy well. It was pretty wild at this time. Again, I was known as one of the more prominent gaming YouTubers in 2010. The major change for me happened in late 2010 when I got laid off, and this is when everything kind of changed, you know, content creation wise, professionality level, and all of that. Okay, professionality, that's a word. Thank you to Great Zero Taste, who did a super chat. So I missed the old days for a lot of reasons, not just YouTube, but in general. Congrats on 15 years, mate. Thank you to Great Zero Taste for that. Spawn Killer re-upped their membership for 5 months, as you forgot. Red Dead DSP. I actually just talked about it, but you're right. I hadn't mentioned it at that point. And B. Raiden did a super chat. Said, will you play the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game? As I've already stated, I'm not interested in it right now. You know, Halloween Marathon coming up. Maybe it is on Game Pass, so maybe then. We'll see. Okay. So, when late 2010 came around, this is when everything changed for me. All right? The company I was working at for my full-time job restructured. I lost my job. And now I was faced with a dilemma. I had bought a condo near my job because I was planning on working there pretty much indefinitely, you know. I didn't really like the job, but I felt like I was going to be able to do this for a living and grow into it long term. And when that was taken away from me and I was laid off, I didn't know what to do. Basically, I looked at the job sector, you know, in my area there in Connecticut where I lived. There was absolutely nothing there that was close to what I was doing and paying close to what I was making. I was going to either have to take a bunch of part-time jobs that had nothing to do with anything I had been doing and juggle them, or do something drastic. So at that time, I remember coming home that day from work and sitting down and watching this, or making this video where I explained to everyone what had happened. I'd been laid off. I didn't know what to do. And a lot of people left me a lot of support and motivational comments at that time saying, you know what? We like your content. We like you as a person. You're not a ginormous rich guy. You don't get millions of views on every video you put out. But maybe you could turn this into something. Give it a thought. I said, you know what? Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try. I'm going to do this as a full-time job. I'm going to put out full-time gameplay content, and I'm going to put out part-time vlogging content. I can only monetize the vlogging, not the gameplay. So I need your guys' buy-in that you're going to watch, rate, and participate in all of my content so that I can make a living doing this. Sadly, some people took this the wrong way, and they went and watched all my vlogs and literally sat there clicking on the ads like this, which you can't do. If you do that on YouTube, you get in trouble. And people did this for about 2 months, and within 2 months, no exaggeration, I went from making $100 to $200 a month on my vlogging channel to about $10,000 to $15,000 a month on my vlogging channel. So obviously that raised some red flags. Initially, when I saw this, I was like, oh shit, if this keeps up, I'll be rich forever. And within 2 months of that happening, YouTube said, we think something wrong is going on here. They were right. They called it invalid click activity. They basically said that it looked like people were clicking the shit out of my videos that shouldn't have been. Because of that, my AdSense was going to be suspended. Okay? So now, not only did I lose my office job, I lost any ability to make money on any YouTube videos because they suspended my AdSense account and I couldn't put ads on any videos of any kind either. So now I'm like, wow, that's pretty bad. Now what do I do? So I started looking at alternatives. Now at this time, I'd also become a fan of a content creator who went by the name of the Nostalgia Critic, okay? And the Nostalgia Critic was someone who, very similarly to the Angry Video Game Nerd, ranted and raved and made this kind of negative content about stuff from his childhood, just not video games. It would be movies, television shows, and pop culture. And I started actually really liking this guy's content over the course of like the last year until I got to this point in my own YouTube career. Now, the Nostalgia Critic already had problems on YouTube. He had tons of false copyright strikes and issues, and he had left YouTube. And he moved over to a website called BlipTV. So I said, I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to try what this guy did. So I went over to BlipTV, and I started uploading all of my gameplay there. All right? I also was uploading it to YouTube, just demonetized. I couldn't monetize it there. But I also was uploading my content to BlipTV. Unlike YouTube, BlipTV was willing to monetize gameplay content. They didn't have any of the features of YouTube. Playlists were incredibly primitive. Search functionality was non-existent. But it was a place I could upload content and try to make money. Okay? Within 1 month of me uploading content to BlipTV, which was around November, December 2010 when I lost my job, I became the number 2 person on the website. The only person bigger than me was the Nostalgia Critic. I surpassed everyone, including Angry Joe and everyone else on the website. I was bigger than them. Okay? I was making more money than them. I was sucking up all the ad revenue. They didn't like that. But people saw this crazy growth. Who is this guy? And I started getting contacted. I actually got contacted by BlipTV. They said, wow, in 1 month, what insane progress. We want to reach out to you. We want to have a private meeting with you about your future. We want to start promoting you on this website. We want to do all this stuff to make you a prominent feature because we think that you can help grow our business. I said, this sounds great. I cannot wait to talk about the future. At the same time, the Nostalgia Critic, who owned a company, it was called that guy with the glasses back then, also had contact with me. I had a whole phone call with Doug. Doug is the Nostalgia Critic, his brother. So him and also the other guy who was like the head of the company, Mike Michaud or something. I had a phone call with them. And we talked all about it. They were like, listen, we want to sign you up. We want you to be part of our group. We're going to have you be part of this group called the Blistered Thumbs. It's going to be you and Angry Joe. The two of you are going to be the top of the gaming landscape on the site. We're going to prominently feature you. We're going to have you in all of our content. We're going to start doing crossover events. This is going to be so exciting, but we need you to start uploading all your content to BlipTV right now, and then start uploading your backlog. Once you get all your content on Blip, you're going to be making money hand over fist, and then we're going to really take off, all right? And I was like, wow. This sounds amazing. So YouTube isn't working out for me because I lost my AdSense account. I'm going to work on BlipTV and see what happens, okay? I'm sure somewhere out there's a timeline where I actually worked with Doug Walker and somehow we're business associates still to this day. There's another universe where this happened. However, I decided to do some of the dumbest things I've ever done. I made a series of content making Nazi jokes. I'm not proud of it. It's out there. You can watch it. It's all over the internet. This is, again, 13 plus years ago. I'm a moron. I never should have made those kind of jokes. I know that now. Back then, again, I was the equal opportunity offender. I thought that I was immune to criticism and I could say and do whatever I wanted because everyone laughed at my jokes. So making these Nazi jokes was not very smart. I made them, and within a couple of days of me making them, BlipTV contacts me. I had a meeting scheduled with BlipTV to meet with their management to plan the future of me on BlipTV as a featured content creator. And they basically said, so we saw this, and we're incredibly offended, and we're kicking you off the site. Goodbye. Get all your stuff. I think they gave me like 3 days. Get all your stuff off the site within the next 3 days. We're deleting it all. Goodbye. They gave me no opportunity to talk, no opportunity to apologize, no opportunity to even improve. They just said, get off our business, you're gone. So, within a 2-month period, I lost the ability to monetize my videos on YouTube, and I lost the ability to make money on blip.tv. They were kicking me off the site. So, things were not going too well for me. But then, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. All right, I had this beef with an internet content creator over complete nonsense. His name was Hutch, and it was just a misunderstanding. And we had this public beef. Behind the scenes, we had talked and squashed that beef. And Hutch actually was a prominent content creator and employee of Machinima. When this all was happening, and I tried all these various things to make a living doing YouTube, and none of them were turning out well, I contacted Hutch, and I said, listen, I don't know what else to do. I need your help. And basically, after having some conversations, he turned me over to the Machinima team. I signed with Machinima as a partner. Machinima was able to monetize my gameplay content, which I had never been able to do before. And literally the rest is history. Like, that was, after that, I became a full-time YouTuber. And things never changed. Now, my content has changed. The style that I make videos has changed. I've stopped being a on-demand content creator to become a full-time live streamer. I definitely have toned down my type of commentary to be more real, to be more fun, to be more calm, to be more interactive with the audience. So a lot of things have changed. But ever since I signed with Machinima, that was like the day that was it. From now on, I'm a full-time YouTuber and this is my job. And I've been doing this full-time since early 2011. So you can say, 12 and a half now years, I've been a full-time content creator on the internet, and this has been my profession. And through all the ups and downs, because there's been a ton, and I'm sure this could be a whole thing we could go into, and I don't know if anyone really cares for me to go into that level of detail today. But I'm just talking about my early days, in this video. But in all the ups and downs and all the changes and everything, right? What I can say is I've absolutely, positively loved every moment that I've been able to be my own boss. When you get to make your own schedule, when you get to make the content you like, ultimately, with all the factors involved. I mean, there's been things that have happened on YouTube, things that have happened on Twitch TV, things that have happened with all my partnerships and sponsorships and all this stuff over the years, right? Ultimately, as long as I work my ass off, people appreciate it. And people over the years have supported my content no matter where I've gone, no matter what I've done. Ever since that moment that I showed my efforts to become a full-time professional and I upped my game and I started really committing so much time to putting out videos and all of that, right? I love that. And the fact that, again, through all the ups and downs and things that have happened, that I have a fan base, that a lot of people have followed me since the old days, which is crazy to hear. I watched you when you played Fallout 3 in 2009. I'm like, what? You followed me for, that long? That's insane to hear that. To this day, I still get messages from people who say, thank you so much, because you don't understand. Back in the day, you changed my life. I was messed up. I had messed up things going on personally, and watching your content put a smile on my face, made me feel special, made me feel like laughing for once when everything else in my life was terrible. And I look like, you have to understand something. I'll be completely transparent with all of you. I didn't know that the stuff that I was doing 15 years ago would ever amount to anything, all right? I was an asshole. I was getting out of the Street Fighter community. I had an injury. I was depressed. I didn't know that anything that I ever did on YouTube was ever going to amount to anything for anyone. I was just someone messing around with a camera, being a jerk, right? Screaming and doing commentary or whatever. I didn't know that anything would have that kind of a positive impact on people. What a profound change it would have on people's lives, But the fact that it did, and the fact that I'm still here 15 years later through all the ups and downs and the trials and tribulations, it means something, There's a lot of other content creators out there who, they started off one way, but they just couldn't do it. They couldn't continue to be successful. They couldn't continue to make a living doing what they were doing. They had to change, in my opinion, for the worse. If you started out as one kind of a creator and that was truly your passion, and the only way that you could survive on YouTube was to follow the trends. I have to become a drama content creator. I have to shit on someone all day. I have to make toxic content about people all the time. I have to restream someone else's stream like some people are doing right now to me in order to even get a view or make a living. What kind of success is that? I've been able to make the content I like. I've been able to evolve and change over these years. I've been able to avoid having my content being about pushing a product down your throat, pushing advertisements down your gullet. Instead, it's about me sitting here and putting out stuff that I stand behind, right? A meaningful podcast that has fun conversation with my audience every day. Content of gameplay that I feel is true and honest. I don't have to kiss a game's butt to say it's good. I don't have to shit on a game to say it's bad for clickbait. I can be honest with you guys, right? I can play a fighting game and tell you my honest thoughts about it and not have to say it's the best game ever because I rely on views and all kinds of love so that people will watch my stuff. I don't have any, because people know when they come to my content, they can trust me. I'm not out for any agenda, and that means something. And because of that, I have people who come, and it's not a lot of people. Today, 15 years later, I'm small time. I used to be Mr. Big Time, Mr. Big Prominent YouTuber. With all the toxic stuff that's happened to me over the last 15 years, a lot of that's gone away. But in 2023, I can still turn on my camera, turn on my stream, interact with you guys, and for a small audience who appreciates what I do, I still have meaning. And that means something to me. And it means something to you too. Because, again, the reason I'm able to continue doing what I love is because of your support. If it wasn't for your support these last 15 years, I wouldn't be here. Again, I didn't get any big sponsorship or partnership opportunities. I never sold out like a lot of these guys have. I've been myself, true to myself. I've lost a lot of money. I need you guys to understand something. I lost a lot of money over these years. These opportunities that I've been offered, but it meant selling out who I was. I don't want to ever do that. I want to be true to myself. And I hope that you guys appreciate that. I know you do. Because if you didn't, I wouldn't still be here today making a living doing what I love. And thank you all for that. It's been rough. I know there's been some rough years in there where things were very tight and it felt like I was desperate. I hear you. I was. I declared bankruptcy and everything. But the good news is we're through all of that. We are. We're better. We came out the other end. We're better. Things are moving forward positively in a great direction. And I look at the improvements I've been able to do to my content, right? The visual quality, the streams look so different now, right? And now I'm branching out. I'm making different kinds of content. And again, why? Because of you. That's why. Yes, it has to do with me busting my ass and my dedication and with the fact that I'm one of the most prolific YouTubers out there. But it equally has to do with you coming to this content every day and supporting it in the ways that you have. Telling me your stories about how much it meant to you. I would never, ever have kept doing this for a living if it didn't mean as much to you as it does. If I didn't get those testimonials, those stories of people who love who I am and what I stand for, I would have quit. But because of you guys, I stick in there, and then you guys give me the power to keep doing what I feel has meaning. Thank you for 15 awesome years of doing that. You know, it's funny because a lot of people thought that this video was going to go into all the toxic stuff. I don't have to go into the toxic stuff. You guys know that. You can find it right now. You can find how YouTube changed, how attitudes on YouTube changed from being positive to toxic, how people got upset with me for various things that happened over the years and started movements like this is how you don't play, and then it's conspiracy theories and all the hate watchers and all the nonsense. How so many people over the years have made me the butt of their joke so they can make $1 at my expense. But guess what? I'm still here. While I'm still here making the same content that I love, they're out there desperate to make $1 tomorrow. They got to find the next person to make fun of, the next person to crap on, the next controversy to jump on. While I can just sit here and do what I love every day because of you. Thank you for that. I hope that you understand how meaningful that is to me and my family. I never would have met my wife if it wasn't for this. Seriously. Because I would have been in a different place. I would have been in a different situation. I never would have been in the amazing life that I have. The personal life is because of everything that's happened up to this point, you know? So I take the good with the bad. I take the toxic with the positive. Because today, I'm happy. I'm happy because I've persevered through over 10 years of toxic stuff to be where I am today. And to be quite frank, I feel like I'm past most of the nonsense. I do. I don't think that anything that anyone says or does about me anymore is going to tank me, is going to hurt me. I feel like I've been through the worst of it. And now we can together as a community move forward positively into the future and say, ignore all the bullshit, stay here on DSP Gaming or DSPReacts, and let's have a good time together every day and ignore all the white noise that happens on the outside. Those people are the desperate losers who need to bring down others to make a buck. I don't ever have to do that. Ever. I will never have to bring down another person in order to be happy and make a living. And that makes me know that I have won after all this time. Okay? So thank you all for 15 amazing years on YouTube. It means a lot to me. Coming from nothing. Coming from zero backing, zero filmography experience, zero anything. And 15 years later, being able to still do what I love and being told that what I do has meaning, that means the absolute world. Thank you so much. Just today. I mean, I don't have to say anything. Look at the support I've gotten. And we're only a couple hours into today's event. And the support that I get because people love what I do. Yeah. You know, that means something. And by the way, did I have to rip anyone a new asshole today? Did I have to be toxic to anyone to do this? Nope. All I had to do was rest on my own laurels, rest on the own accomplishments that I've done and the things that I'm going to continue to do. That's why I'm still here, not because I have to crap on anybody else. So, thank you all, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video of my early history as a YouTuber. And, you know, 15 years down, there's the 15 more. Or even greater. Someone even said earlier this morning, they said, I can't wait to be with you on your 25th anniversary. What will you be doing? Who knows, right? Because if you take a look at what I do today, a daily podcast, an interactive live stream, 2 different games a day, a React channel where I do a fun React show every month, long-form React events, gaming marathons. Who would have known 15 years ago this is what I would be doing today, right? So in another 10 years, who knows what's the next thing I'll be doing? I don't know. I've always told you guys this, and I will say this. I feel like as I get older, when you get older and you get wiser, people want to talk about more serious topics, right? And I've always avoided certain topics, things like religion and politics, on purpose. Because when you come to my channel, you want to get fun, you want to talk about video games, things that disconnect you from the drama, right? I feel like as I get older, eventually one day we're going to go there, all right? I'm being honest. I don't know when. I don't think now is the right time. I feel like at one point, we're going to eventually end up getting into that kind of stuff. And it's going to be just as good as it's been with everything else, where it's interactive, it's fun, and I take in all perspectives, and we try to talk about these things in an open environment. It's not just my way or the highway anymore like it used to be 10, 15 years ago. Instead, it's a more positive, open discussion about these kind of topics. A lot of people ask me all the time about your history, growing up as a Roman Catholic and stuff like that, or where does your family stand on politics and stuff like that. Maybe we'll talk about that stuff in the future. Today, I want to stay away from that. We're gamers, right? We have a commonality. We have something fun we like to talk about, and for the most part, it's very positive. Let's not soil that, because right now, there's a lot of people who just don't have the ability to talk about things like religion and politics and not get angry with each other. How sad is it that right now in our world, there's people like, if you're not with me, you're against me. That's the worst mentality you can have in life, is that if you're not with me, you're against me. You will not even listen to an outside perspective, to an outsider's opinion. Instead, it's either my way or the highway. That's the dumbest thing you can feel in life. And that's how I used to be. When I was a YouTuber and I started out, I'm not kidding, that's how my mentality was. And over these last 15 years, I've definitely changed for the better. So I feel like over time, this is stuff that I can branch out and do. It's what every other YouTuber is already doing it. They already had to go there because they're that desperate. That's something that I can save for later till we're ready for it, right? And that's the cool thing about it, is that I'm still able to do gaming for a living and not have to go there. While everyone else already had to go to the drama bullshit, I've still maintained a level of success that lets me do what I love. So thank you all for that very, very much, really. And I appreciate everything. I feel like I should end this video before I rant on forever, because I'm just so grateful. I could just say I'm grateful for the next hour. But thank you all, and here's to another 15 years of popularity and fun here on YouTube. Thank you all, and I'll see you soon.